Iran and Israel, once allies, trading oil, sharing intelligence, even backing each other on the global stage. Today, they are arch enemies, threatening war, death, and nuclear destruction. But what if I told you this conflict isn't what you think? What if the claim that Iran wants to wipe Israel off the map is based on a mistranslation weaponized by decades of propaganda? What if someone wanted these two nations at war because war is profitable and peace is just inconvenient? It's not just about nuclear weapons. It's about power, it's about deception, and history they never wanted you to question. For some of you who may not know, before 1979, Iran and Israel were actually very close allies. They were both strong partners of the West. Iran, although a Muslim majority country, was very secular at the time. They had diplomatic ties with Israel, engaged in business, and Israel even bought oil from Iran. Both countries also shared intelligence and military hardware. So you wonder, how did two countries with such close ties become bitter enemies that not only want to destroy each other, but also seem willing to kill each other's future generation? To understand this, we must go back to what happened in 1915. In 1915, the land now known as Palestine was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. The British sought to dismantle the Ottoman Empire and promised Sharif Hussein of Mecca, a prominent Arab leader at the time, that they would support the creation of Arab states, including the land now known as Palestine, where Israel is today, if the Arabs revolted against the Ottoman rule. This was seen by many Arabs as a promise what they would be granted over Palestine after the war. However, the British didn't stop there. They also promised the same land to the Jewish people. Why? You wonder. Well, because they needed international support, particularly from the influential Jewish communities in Europe, Russia, and America. The British aimed to attract Jewish financiers and political allies who held sway over Western powers, especially the United States. With this coalition, by 1920, the Ottoman Empire was defeated and the land referred to as Palestine came under British control. The Jewish immigration to Palestine increased significantly in 1930, largely due to rising anti-Semitism in Europe, particularly in Nazi Germany. Tension between the Jews and the Arabs in Palestine escalated due to land disputes, religious differences, immigration concerns, and competing nationalism. Britain struggled to maintain order and eventually began restricting Jewish immigration, especially during World War II. This angered many Jews who were trying to flee the Holocaust. After World War II, with global sympathy for Jews at an all-time high and Britain exhausted and unable to manage the conflict in Palestine, the matter was handed over to the newly formed United Nations in 1947. In that year, the United Nations proposed a partition. The land would be divided into a Jewish state, an Arab state, and an international zone around Jerusalem. At the time, Jews made up of about 33% of the population, while the population of Palestinian Arabs, Muslim and Christian, made up of 67%. Yet the plan proposed to give the Jews 57% of the land, even while they were 33% of the population, leaving the Palestinian with just 67% of the land, even though they had 43% of the population, with Jerusalem being 1% designated as an international zone. The Arabs rejected this plan, calling it unjust, and this event formed the foundation of the deep-rooted hostility between Israel and the Arab world. Fast forward to 1979, both Israel and Iran had become key Western allies. However, there is a growing resentment in Iran as many began to view the ruling royal family, the Shah's regime, as a Western puppet. This discontent led to the Iranian Revolution, in which the royal family was overthrown and replaced by a theocratic regime led by Ayatollah Khomeini. The new regime promptly severed ties with Israel. Today, Israel seeks to maintain dominance in the region and appears willing to confront any country that challenges its expansionist goal. Israel has consistently tried to steal more land from its neighbors, from Gaza to the West Bank to Syria and to Lebanon, with impunity. The key strategy it employs is labeling any opposing nation as a terrorist state or a country pursuing weapons of mass destruction.
A tyrant who is feverishly trying to acquire nuclear weapons. And today the United States must destroy the same regime, because a nuclear-armed Saddam will place the security of our entire world at risk. Reflecting the reality to assume that Saddam isn't feverishly working to develop nuclear weapons. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
We saw the devastating effect of this propaganda in 2023 when Iraq was invaded under the pretext of possessing weapons of mass destruction under Saddam Hussein. And who do you think played a significant role in the gathering the intelligence that led to that war? I'll give you 10 seconds to guess. The Israel's Mossad. At a minimum, over 250,000 lives were lost due to a war built on falsehood. To this day, not a single person has been held accountable. This same strategy may possibly be used against Iran as we speak. Iran has repeatedly stated that it is not enriching uranium for weapons purposes. You may argue that Iran can't be trusted, and that is fair. But if you have a brain that functions better than that of a cakewalk, you also question the credibility of the Israeli government, given its history of propaganda. Let's look at the timeline of this nuclear scare campaign. In 2023, it was claimed Iran was 12 months away from a nuclear bomb.
Take Iran about 12 months to enrich enough nuclear material for a single nuclear weapon.
United States.
In 2021,
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is warning that Iran is potentially just months away or less from nuclear breakpoint.
in 2015,
Iran is 2 months away from a nuclear weapon, and it's a victory to get them 1 year away?
in 2013,
Iran could be less than a month away from building a nuclear weapon.
in 2012,
Who has made 2 tough-talking TV appearances, saying that Iran is just months away from making a nuclear bomb.
back in 2001,
Understand is that you have to dismantle the entire terror empire, and especially before its main practitioners, the terror states of Iran and Iraq, acquire nuclear weapons. And this, I think, has been a wake-up call from hell. It is telling us you have the power now to act.
if all these warnings haven't materialized, isn't it clear that this is warmongering propaganda? Now, I can't say with certainty that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, but I can say with certainty that the information we are getting from the Western media is heavily influenced by Israeli interests that may seek to destroy Iran. And if Iran wasn't pursuing nuclear weapons before, Israel's recent acts of aggression, attacking Iranian structure and killing Iranian citizens, may very well justify them starting now. Because history shows that the countries with nuclear weapons don't get attacked. Countries without them do. Look at Libya. Gaddafi had a nuclear program, but was convinced to give it up. A few years later, he was killed and Libya collapsed into chaos. Look at Ukraine. After the fall of the Soviet Union, he had a nuclear stockpile, but gave them up under the promise of Western protection. Today, it's been invaded by Russia. So why do certain countries never get invaded? Think of Pakistan, India, North Korea, France, the US, the UK, Germany, etc. They all have nuclear weapons. So if I were Iran, this would be the time to pursue nuclear capability. Ideally, we should live in a world without nuclear weapons. But that world must be one where nobody has them or everybody has the right to develop them. Now, some argue it would be dangerous for Iran to have a nuclear weapon because of its supposed intent to wipe Israel off the map. But that claim comes from a possible mistranslation of a 2005 speech by the then President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who quoted Ayatollah Khomeini, and I quote, "This regime occupying Jerusalem must vanish from the page of the time." This has been misinterpreted as a call to develop nuclear bomb to wipe off Israel. Even the United States Director of National Intelligence has stated clearly that Iran is not actively developing a nuclear bomb.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khomeini has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
So the real question becomes, who is the terrorist? Is a terrorist any nation that opposes the West? Any nation that doesn't practice democracy? Any nation that doesn't like Israel? Terrorism, as most reasonable people define it, is the use of threats of violence, usually against civilians, to create fear or to coerce a population or a government for political, religious, or ideological goals. By that definition, Israel has killed over 50,000 innocent women and children in Gaza. I am not aware of any Iranian actions that have killed as many civilians. So if Iran is to be labeled a terrorist state, then Israel certainly qualifies as one too. We all want a world free of nuclear weapons, but that world must be just, where no nation has nuclear weapons, or all nations have the right to defend themselves equally by any means. If this opens your eyes, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for the more deep dives into the truth they don't teach in history class.